Yeah, listen, I think Bitcoin continues to be the best performing asset in the history of mankind, the best performing asset over the last 15 years, and the best performing asset right now for a very simple concept, but it's profound. And for that very reason, Bitcoin will outperform, and it's the best way to protect your money, your time, your energy, your effort, your labor. It's the best way to store value from today and into the future. And by owning something like Bitcoin, for me, is saying, listen, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know who they're going to dictate the loser, but it's not going to be me.
Bitcoin is more than just an investment. It's a revolution. Jack Mallers, a key figure in the crypto world, lays out why Bitcoin is the most powerful asset of our time. With its unmatched scarcity and global potential, Bitcoin is changing the game. But how high could it actually go? Stay tuned to find out why Bitcoin is on track to beat gold and redefine wealth forever.
Yeah, listen, I think Bitcoin continues to be the best performing asset in the history of mankind, the best performing asset over the last 15 years, and the best performing asset right now for a very simple concept, but it's profound, is that it's the scarcest, it's the hardest. And when people say Bitcoin's hard, they're referencing how hard it is to make more. That's the key term and the key phrase. And what's really interesting to understand is traditionally in markets, with more demand comes more supply. Now, if everyone in the world wants a Bitcoin, it's actually the only thing that you can own where we can't make any more, where we cannot increase the supply. And for that very reason, Bitcoin demands a higher price. New supply comes from the market. New supply comes from those that have it. More demand demands a higher price. And it's the scarcest and it's the hardest to make more of. In fact, it's the only thing you can own where we can't make any more of it. So it's for that very reason that it is the most performant asset in human history and will continue to be. And it's simple. It's a straightforward idea, but it's a very profound idea. And that's what I think we're seeing. And that's what we've been seeing since it was invented. Listen, I don't consider myself a short-term trader. I believe in Bitcoin's long-term. Listen, financial markets like certainty. Another way to put that is they don't like uncertainty. So going into one of the most uncertain elections, I think financial markets, there's a lot of capital on the sidelines. It didn't surprise me that Bitcoin didn't want to move until it got a result. Going into the election, remind you, people didn't know if whoever won or lost, if we were going to actually get a final result, if there was going to be marching and protests and revolting, and if anyone was going to concede to being the loser. I think such a landslide victory and such a decisive win for Trump gave the market a lot of certainty, and it acted on that certainty. That is unquestionable. That's just data. That's just math. Now, whether it's Powell or Putin or Trump or new chairmen, I think the story here is Bitcoin is a good idea. What do I mean by that? Having a neutral money accessible to everyone in the world, inclusive where everyone has access, that no one can print, no one can debase, it's infinitely divisible, it's transportable digitally. That's just a good idea. It's a good idea. It's a revolutionary idea. It's an idea that helps all. And that's what I think the story of Bitcoin is. It's helping the US government. It's helping families, individuals, corporations, and Michael Saylor. It's helping Russia. It's helping potentially the Fed. So I think the story here is what Bitcoin's trying to achieve is a good idea. And the measure of its value is it achieving that? And I think it is. It's been 15 years and it continues to do so. So that's the main takeaway. I'm happy to get into any of those subtopics in detail, but to me, Bitcoin's just a really, really good idea that's working. My position on Bitcoin is Bitcoin's very American. Bitcoin's pro-technology, it's pro-growth, it's inclusive. Bitcoin enforces equal rights for all. There's a freedom in opining, there's a freedom in coming and going. It's a peered network where it's rules with no rulers. These are all American ideals and American values. And I think seeing a president that says we want to be pro-technology, we want to be pro-growth, we want to continue to be the leader of the free world and the leader of innovation. And Bitcoin screams all of those things. So seeing our leader recognize that in a new technology trend, I think should instill confidence in the American people, and then for those that rely on America to continue to lead with its ideals. So I think it's a net positive across the board. I really don't see any downside risk in our president supporting and encouraging new technological trends that have been additive to our species over the last decade plus.
In this interview, Jack Mallers dives into why Bitcoin has become the best performing asset over the past 15 years. Unlike traditional assets, Bitcoin's supply is fixed, which makes it inherently valuable. As Mallers explains, the more demand there is, the higher the price of Bitcoin will climb. It's the hardest asset to produce, and that's what sets it apart from everything else. He also emphasizes Bitcoin's role in solving problems that traditional assets like real estate and gold can't. For now, Bitcoin is more than just digital money. It's a store of value with unlimited potential. But there's more to this story. Stick around to hear Maller's insights on how Bitcoin is challenging the global fiscal system and why its value might soon surpass gold.
I think, first of all, this is extremely validating, and it's a huge step for Bitcoin to get acknowledgement from the chair of the biggest central bank in the world, from Federal Reserve, the US dollar, effectively. I think his comments can be interpreted as this. The size of the market that Bitcoin's going after, I measured on my own calculations, is about $900 trillion. And that's the amount of wealth that's stored in assets. So that's a gold, other precious metals, art collectibles, equities, real estate. It's about $900 trillion worth of wealth. And I think what he's saying is, listen, nobody uses the US dollar as a savings account. Nobody stores their wealth in the US dollar. People use equities, real estate, precious metals, art. These are the assets people have monetized to persist and store their wealth. And Bitcoin is a competitor to that. And I really, really would. I think Bitcoin is demonetizing these instruments where people are going from owning 10 homes where they only live and consume in one to, I might as well just own the one home I actually use and sell my 9 and buy Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is better at persisting and storing wealth. Bitcoin is outperforming, and your other 9 homes weren't actually intended to be a monetary unit to store value. They were intended for you to live in them. And so I think society has monetized other assets in their life out of desperation to persist and store wealth. And now we've engineered a solution that solves that problem. And what Jerome is saying is, listen, we're still going to have the dollar as a transactional currency in this country, but if people are going to speculate and use Bitcoin to store and persist their wealth as opposed to real estate instead of an index basket of equities, instead of a gold bar, that seems reasonable to me. And in fact, those that have outperformed those that haven't. An incredible step for Bitcoin because it's being acknowledged at its biggest stage to $2 trillion asset. And at this point, I think the conversation is how impactful and how important can Bitcoin be as opposed to when is it going to fail? I think we're making that and we're crossing that chasm.
A signpost of them attempting to rectify hardwired dogma or politics with shifting reality that they see they can't admit yet. So what's your take on Powell's seemingly contradictory stance? I mean, is this the case of central bankers contorting language to fit old frameworks, or is there a deeper hesitation to grant Bitcoin full store of value status?
I think all of the above. I agree with Luke. I mean, listen, I would consider myself more of an expert on Bitcoin than Jerome. Yeah. I think there are millions or tens of millions or potentially hundreds of millions of people that actively disagree with Jerome. I think there's been $2 trillion worth of wealth created in a peaceful, distributed manner over the last 15 years that literally contradict what he just said. So I don't really value his opinion and his expertise on Bitcoin. I don't think he's a Bitcoin expert at all. I doubt he owns any. I doubt he's ever used it. I doubt he understands it. I think it's the mere fact that he thinks of it like gold and that there's an idea globally where you cannot store and persist your wealth in fiat currencies. These currencies face inflation. These currencies are actively debased. These currencies' monetary unit is increased. And so you have to go elsewhere if you want to store your time and energy, your effort and your labor, your wealth, your future. And Bitcoin is increasingly the solution for that. I agree. I think we might actually see Bitcoin's market cap exceed gold far sooner than 10 years. Listen, it goes back to my fundamental point initially. If we want more gold, if the gold price 10x's, if for whatever reason demand surges, we can get more. Gold is in the ground. Gold is on other planets. Elon told us he's going to go to another planet and get a bunch more gold if we need him to. If we need more Bitcoin, we can't get any more. And again, that speaks to Bitcoin as a money, not a utility. It speaks to its fact you can't debase it, you can't print it, you can't inflate it. And for that very reason, Bitcoin will outperform, and it's the best way to protect your money, your time, your energy, your effort, your labor. It's the best way to store value from today and into the future. On top of that, consider the fact that it's weightless to hold it. On top of that, consider that it's free and instant to transfer it anywhere in the world. On top of that, consider it's way cheaper to verify its authenticity. On top of that, consider the fact that it could be divided into such small units that could measure a grain of sand or measure the size of a sports franchise. Right. It is the superior monetary asset and monetary good. The last thing I'll say about gold is this. The one very interesting insight about Bitcoin is it's not only a monetary asset, it's also a monetary network. Bitcoin achieved the impossible, which is transaction finality without a middleman, without a central party. And so it's for that very reason as well that Bitcoin can scale to the economy we live in today. today without the counterparty risk necessary of a central bank, a corporation, or a government, is that governments only own 2, 3, 4% of this asset. The rest of this asset is owned by the public and the people, and it's working. And so for all of those reasons, I think Bitcoin is intended and designed and engineered to solve gold's shortcomings. Bitcoin is a man-made asset. It's an engineered asset. The story of humanity is engineering a better world. And I think that's absolutely and literally what Bitcoin is. And for all of those reasons, I think Bitcoin is going to take gold's lunch, for better or worse. I think every single person on this planet has acknowledged our fiscal situation and the fact that it's a disaster, it's a massive problem. It's probably the most important problem we have and no one knows how to solve it. Take a second and just sit on that. I'll never forget my Fed chairman getting on 60 Minutes after I was watching LeBron James play basketball and say, we are on an unsustainable path. The US government is going to go bankrupt if somebody doesn't do something. I was like, what planet am I living on? That was real life. And now we're at a point where there's Jamie Dimon, Jerome Powell. It doesn't matter who you ask. The fiscal situation, the deficits are far too gone. We have a massive problem. There's no clear solution. So I think that that's bullish hard assets. I think that's bullish alternative monetary systems. I think that's bullish a digital thing that I can put in my pocket or put in my brain that no one can debase and no one can print. I think that if you look at domestic debt to GDP, if you look at global debt to GDP, whatever metric is your favorite, there's a hole in the balance sheet. There is more borrowed than we've produced growth to pay it back. And the question everyone has to ask is, who's realizing that loss? There's a loss. Someone has to realize it. Which one of us sitting at the table is the loser? And that's what I think everyone's fighting over. That's what policy is about. These are the decisions that are being made at the highest level. And by owning something like Bitcoin, for me, is saying, listen, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know who they're going to dictate the loser, but it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. And I can cryptographically and mathematically guarantee you that it's not going to. So I'm out. And that's how I think about it. And that's what I think we're living through.
As the conversation unfolds, Mallers underscores that Bitcoin is not just an asset, it's a solution to global economic uncertainty. Its decentralized nature makes it an ideal way to store and transfer value in a world where traditional systems are failing. If you're ready to rethink your financial future, now's the time to pay attention to Bitcoin. Don't miss out. Subscribe for more insights from industry leaders like Jack Mallers.